Hello everyone, good evening. Can you all hear me well? I hope everyone is doing well. Can anyone just confirm quickly if everything's okay with the sound? And anyone can hear me well? Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, so welcome to the live stream, everyone. Thank you very much for everyone who has been waiting and joining us as we talk. As usual, subscribers and members can have their input, share their thoughts, and ask questions as usual. And we'll spend the Saturday evening together, or morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. So the main thing that I want to talk to you about today is the preparation for Rafah. Everyone is talking about Rafah. Obviously, Netanyahu is ordering the army to go into Rafah. As a matter of fact, today he ordered the reservist mobilization to Rafah earlier on today. So you're talking about people who already withdrew from Gaza. He wants them back in. This caused another problem with him and the IDF chief, Herzi Halevi. They had a fight together in the meeting. And all of this was reported by Israeli Channel 13 alongside other outlets in Israel, other media sources. The disagreements between them, they didn't just start now. They started from the beginning of this war, but now they're escalating. And there are certain reasons why they have these differences when it comes to the war. It's the longevity of it, the lack of support, lack of preparation, and inability of the Israeli army. So here were some of the things that were reported that we will be discussing. So Benjamin Netanyahu, he urged the IDF, because obviously, Netanyahu can want a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the IDF has to be prepared. He can't be ordering whatever he likes and, IDF, okay, we're here. They need to have enough fighters, they need to have enough weapons, everything. He ordered the IDF to formulate a plan, and listen what he said, to cleanse Rafah. Imagine the terms that these people are using. And yesterday we spoke about how he said about the evacuation of civilians. They're being honest with their plans because it's nothing to do with Hamas, like this whole genocide is nothing to do with Hamas. It's with the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. It's with the Nakba of Gaza. Like they did in 1948, they want to do it now. So that happened in the last cabinet discussion. Herzi Halevi, Netanyahu told him in the same meeting, if you released reservists, recruit them again. You just released them. You just took them out of Gaza because apparently we were reaching a deal, a ceasefire deal. A small amount of brigades went to Lebanon in case things get out of hand there. But now he's asking him, ordering him to bring them back to Gaza. Now, this is the interesting thing here. Regarding the recruitment of the IDF fighters, Halevi, the IDF chief, he said, we will know how to meet any task, but there are political aspects here that need to be taken care of first. Now, that's a direct sting to Benjamin Netanyahu and the government. The IDF chief is saying, but there are political actions that need to be taken first. Usually, when you're head of the army, you belong to you follow the orders of the prime minister or the president, right? Clearly, there's lots of back and forth here. We spoke about how Blinken wanted to meet him as well, and the government didn't allow him. The plan requires, he continued, the evacuation of 1.3 million residents who are there. again, confirming what Netanyahu wants, which is the expulsion of the Palestinian people from Gaza to Rafah, and I'll get to what's Egypt doing in a second. And the action requires coordination with the political class in Egypt. He's telling Netanyahu the political things need to be sorted first. The IDF will do what is required from an Israeli senior official, according to them. And they previously said the action in Rafah is getting closer. But the IDF is telling them, take the political action first. Now, a spokesperson and that's another interesting thing. And a spokesperson for the IDF, he said they haven't been given a date yet for the action in Rafah. So we're hearing all of this talk. Netanyahu saying we're starting the action. They didn't even receive a confirmation of a date. The suspicions are because that the Rafah operation is being delayed because the army is not prepared. Now, why did Halevi say to Netanyahu, you need to deal with the political things first? Egypt is in complete disconnection now with Israel, by the way. It's been reported just over a week ago. Firstly, we spoke about the Egyptian president refusing to accept a phone call from Benjamin Netanyahu. And 2 weeks ago, the same Channel 13, they said that there's complete disconnection between the Prime Minister of Israel, the Israeli government, and the Egyptian government, who usually, you need to understand, traditionally Egypt acts as a side that reduces tensions, reaches a deal, puts pressure on Israel, tries to make Hamas compromise, and tone things down. Now they're not speaking at a political level with Israel, and they're preparing for an influx of Palestinian refugees fleeing from Gaza because of the Israeli operation that's about to happen, most likely depending on the level of disagreement between the IDF chief and Benjamin Netanyahu. And they started putting more fences inside of the Egyptian Rafah to prepare for an influx. So Egypt is anticipating the worst. And what Israel could do, yesterday we spoke about this assumption. Kate, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Israel would most likely go back, keep the Palestinian refugees where they are. They will not give them a corridor to the north because they're shooting everyone going to the north. And they obviously, their plan was to completely split Gaza in half and force them to go to Rafah. They will most likely bomb parts of the borders. And if you have any part of the wall that's open, you'll have people, the natural thing is to flee the bombing, right? There's so much people can tolerate. We spoke about how resilient the people are, how they go back to their homes. But when an actual bomb is landing and you have families in tents, for heaven's sake, and this is happening in front of this shameful, immoral, politically ruled world with corrupt people. I don't know how they're allowing something like this to happen. They will most likely go to Egypt. Once they're in Egypt, you're talking about the first step of war. I mean, Israel's done already everything it can possibly can to increase the tension so much with Egypt. And the next step would be the Palestinians fleeing this action as and when it begins clearly. And this is the main thing we're talking about here. There's a massive split and disagreement between the army chief and Benjamin Netanyahu about the whole operation, clearly also because the Israeli army is not prepared for this. I mean, they struggled with the whole campaign in Gaza, and now you're telling me bring more troops in after you dismiss them, mobilize the troops back to Rafah. And not many people are talking about the fact that the army is incapable. I mean, they already proved to everyone in the world that they are incompetent when it comes to battle, you know. They're very good at bombing from airplanes, causing massacres and genocide. They're good at that, yeah. But they're not good when it comes to the ground invasion, when it comes to facing actual resistance fighters and making any progress that will give them a stable situation when it comes to Gaza. So this is the main topic of the evening. And now I'll open the opportunity for all of the subscribers and members to join in, have their comments, and share their views, and obviously ask any questions. Please remember just everyone to have a respectful tone, obviously, because obviously many people might disagree on certain things. And if you wouldn't mind just not repeating too many messages, I will try and get to each and every comment or question. And sorry in advance if I'm unable to read everything, because obviously there will be plenty of messages coming in, and we will focus on the ones that are most suitable to the live stream. Obviously, greetings and salams to all of you, anyone who is joining us and who joined us since the beginning. Taylor Samur, you mean ethnically cleansing? Yeah, absolutely, ethnically cleansing. I'm not sure if I said a different word, but it's an ethnic cleansing campaign. It's a Nakba. It's an expulsion, forced expulsion. It's a genocide. Jack Bogard, not sure I understand why fellow Muslims allow the genocide. I don't understand how any human being allows this genocide. Anyone with a decent half-functioning moral compass and sense allow this to happen, or at least don't vote, are not vocal against it, really. Ian Watson, Sabah al-Noor, the Gazan conflict is coming at to a very critical stage. There are many contradictions in the battle. Exactly, it is coming to a very critical stage. I mean, we've already had critical stages previously. The most critical stage now is obviously Rafah, because the outcome could potentially mean war with Egypt at some point. I mean, even if you talk about things getting out of hand ever so slightly with Egypt, that could immediately lead to a massive escalation. And trust you me, that the Egyptian army has been holding it for a very long time. And once the can is open with them, it's going to be really hard to close it. And like you said, Ian, too, there are contradictions in the battle, absolutely. Because look at what's happening on the ground, obviously, and then look at what's happening with the political leadership and the military leadership. Low poll, why don't the Hizb and Hamas target the airports? They do. They did target the airports. Hamas targeted Ben Gurion airport many times. And Israel, and it's interesting for you to know, so Hamas already have missiles that can reach Ben Gurion from a very long time ago. But Israel obviously has the Iron Dome. It'll intercept lots of them. But not all of them, you know. We've seen, you know, landings. Israel obviously censors this. Israel created the Ramon airport in the southern part of Israel, as south as possible, to have a functioning airport. After Hamas proved to them that they're able to reach Ben Gurion airport. Once Israel declared that they opened Ramon airport, Hamas introduced their longest range missile, which is called Ayyash 250, in reference to one of their previous leaders, Yahya Ayyash, who was in the military wing. and it has a range of 250 kilometers. So they cover all of the airports. Obviously, Hezbollah, they attack some of the airports used by the army. And don't forget, Israel, it has some bases where it launches from under the ground, especially in the north. Thank you all of your for all of your nice comments as well. Taylor Samhuri, yes, but if they get to the Egyptian border, Egypt will declare war. It's not if they reach the Egyptian border, it's what they do after they reach the Egyptian border, because Israel already had strikes exactly on the border, but the Palestinian side, right? And there were a couple of events where there were initial shootings that were quickly resolved between the Israelis and the Egyptians on both sides. The question is, will it reach Egyptian territory? And I know many people would say it's so stupid, because why were they so quiet when there's a genocide happening? I totally get that argument. I absolutely get that argument. But for us to understand if a country is going to actually take action, it would have to deal with this, with its national sovereignty, national territory. That's the thing. And Egypt has always been preparing for another war with Israel ever since their peace treaty. Most of their resources are against Israel, most of their training. We spoke about how Israeli intelligence community, they said that Egypt broke every line of the Camp David Accords peace treaty. Eli Dekel said that, who was in the Military Intelligence Directorate of Israel, or Aman in Hebrew. And yeah, so it depends. If they go into that side, you're talking about potentially an all-out war pretty quickly, by the way. Zain McMahon, will Saudis impose further on Western diplomacy? Look, the Saudi regime, they've been trying to resolve this since the beginning. Obviously, their tone is very diplomatic. They try and kind of keep things stable. They haven't done anything significant to stop this genocide, and they have the power to. Saudi Arabia is a very rich country, oil, you know what I mean? But clearly, ever since the assassination of King Faisal, who actually imposed an oil embargo in the 1973 war, and who was assassinated in a very suspicious way, by the way, if you go into that details. I mean, if anyone is interested in brief, someone who's close to the royal family, he went in without the proper security checks and he shot him. And that was after he did the embargo. So clearly there was something coordinated there, and messages were sent to the ruling family in Saudi Arabia that this is a red line when it comes to economy, most likely from the United States, okay? So that's why they didn't dare do an oil embargo again. But even if they did, even if they threatened with it, you know what I mean? If they only said, we might, okay, to scare people a little bit, they didn't. So obviously not much is expected. I mean, when you talk about Saudi Arabia, the regime, obviously the government, they're saying that they're willing to, have peace talks with Israel after the war, or if they reach an agreement, okay? Is that the time? Or is this the time of raising the bar against this genocide that's going on and putting pressure to try and end it? There are things that are more urgent than other things. The urgent thing now is to stop this genocide. It's as simple as that. Cut everything off the Israeli government. Give them an ultimatum. If you don't stop by now, this is what will happen. It's very simple. But that's not happening, unfortunately. So I don't have much faith in their position. And look, again, I don't know what they do behind closed doors. I really don't. And Saudi Arabia, they tend to do stuff sometimes without saying. But again, we're talking about a situation where everyone's watching you. Everyone's seeing what you're doing. Are you going to be quiet when you have the power to do something? We're all going to be questioned one day. What did we speak? Did we say something? Did we go out against something wrong? Or did we sit in silence? Now imagine if you have power. Imagine if you have actual power to stop something or do something and you don't do it. The thought of it is petrifying. Maura Brown, there have been a lot more tanks army moving to the north of Sinai. Yes, ever since the beginning of this war. As a matter of fact, Egypt, since this ground invasion began, Israel's barbaric genocide, they had very massive military gains. They prepared the army completely. And they have approximately 100,000 troops in Sinai. They've mobilized many tanks. And obviously, I spoke about a couple of weeks ago about their tunnel systems and how Israel was, scared from their tunnel systems that's supposed to be, attacks on tunnel systems. And they're preparing because they know that Israel is an expansionist, colonialist project that had control over Sinai at some point. So if they did have this control, why wouldn't they have it? Again, did anyone think that Israel would resettle in Gaza? No, but now the talks are very open. They'll talk about resettling in Sinai soon. Jack Bogart, don't count on Egypt to do anything. We're not counting. We're not counting. We're just analyzing and seeing where things can go to. There could be escalations that could be dealt with. It could break to an all-out war. It's not about counting or raising our hopes or giving false hopes. No, not at all. Springs, when criticism of Israel upsets some people more than the genocide of 30,000 innocent civilians, being lost for words is an understatement. Spot on, really. It's very, very good question. A3 Media and everyone else, wa alaikum assalam and hello and thank you for joining. All of our usual live stream subs and members and everyone joining us who's new. Patricia G, question, does Saudi has been, lots of questions about Saudi Arabia. Saudi has been making a lot of noise and called emergency session of the Security Council and sending warnings to Israel about Rafah. Will they do anything except talk? Clearly no. I mean, how many sessions did we have with the Security Council? I mean, for heaven's sake, there's an ICJ ruling for Israel to stop the acts of genocide that it's signed to, and it's killed over 2,000 people now since this ruling came out. Is anyone trusting this international system? We have a facade. The world is ruled by power, clearly. There is no international law. International law is used by the US and its fronts to implement their will, impose their will on the global poor nations, right? Or less powerful nations. And that's it, Make sure everything's going the US way, the US administration way. And, when it comes to their allies, their closest people, nothing happens. Like with the ICJ, I mean, let's remember. Thank you very much for everyone contributing. I'm going to reach to your super thanks in a sec. Thank you so much. Very kind of you. Did we forget that last year, in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, it took the ICJ less than a month to ask Russia to withdraw immediately from Ukraine. There was a mass action. And they didn't do back then 1% of what Israel's done. Israel has killed more babies and children than any other country in recent history. This is the biggest genocide in the 21st century. Over 11,000 children. The other day they bombed a car with a little girl and they didn't allow the rescue services to reach her. And it was all across the media today. This is what we're dealing with. But when it was Ukraine, oh, and they proudly were saying, some of the reporters, they look like us. They're not from Iraq or Afghanistan. Imagine how the hypocrisy, double standards, and racism works with this. We shouldn't forget that. And I know there's interest and there's financial interest, and these people don't even care about their own population. We know that. We know that the governments of the United Kingdom, of the United States, many other countries, they couldn't care less about their citizens. All of this money is being spent on Israel and on this war in Yemen. It could be spent on poor people, on people in need, healthcare, work, education, everything, ladies and gentlemen. There's so much money that can be spent on good things. But these people are detached from reality. You're talking about multimillionaires, completely detached from, and I'm not dissing, by the way, wealthy people, don't get me wrong. No, you can be wealthy and a great person. But I'm just saying, many of these people born to privilege and corruption and bought by the people behind them, where the lobbies, where the cartels of farm, whatever it is, the military industrial complex or Zionist lobby, and they're detached from what people face. I mean, if you look at, the United States, many streets in the United States full of homeless people, whether it's in any part of the United States. London, you have people rough sleeping everywhere. And is it more important to go and spend money on a country like Yemen, attacking them, trying to impose a blockade on a genocidal state, right? Or spend that money on people who actually need it. So in short, sorry if I deviate from the question, by the way, because so many things are linked, but it's Patricia's question. A lot of noise about the emergency. Yeah, the Security Council, we're not expecting anything from them. Neither is the ICJ. When I spoke about the ICJ, we weren't expecting anything. They already have so many resolutions for Palestinian statehood, the rights for Palestinian refugees to return. They have resolutions glorifying and hailing and supporting the Palestinian Intifada or uprising in 1987 up until now. Ink on paper. It means nothing, because the powers behind it, they're abusing the power and using it for their own good. Similar to how you have it on a smaller scale, by the way, in countries where people get away with doing things when, average people don't get away with them. Professional YouTube commenter, how do you keep motivation optimistic about positive outcome for Palestine? Look, firstly, I'm a person, I'm a faithful person, right? I believe that everything happens for a reason and is written for us. Al-Qada wal-Qadar, they call it in Arabic, decree, predetermination. Everything happens for a reason. I have full faith in, Allah's mercy on us, even with difficult situation. And I don't have immediate expectations. I mean, many people have immediate expectations when it comes to this. Typical, like you are working towards something. Personally, for example, you don't see immediate results, you get demotivated. You want to go to the gym, you want to have a good body. Oh no, I'm not having the pecs, right? Or you want to go on a diet or whatever, or you want to start up a business, you're not seeing anything, you get demotivated. Now imagine if you're talking about a political conflict that's been going on for 75 years. It's very easy for people to be pessimistic, lose hope, be angry, and not do anything. Leads to apathy. That's very negative. The positive thing to do is rely on the actions that you can take. And again, let no one underestimate what they do. And the basic thing we can do is talk, speak, be vocal against something that's wrong. And at the same time, not just be anti something, we're pro something too. Like on a personal level, I'm pro-equality, for example. This is why I wrote a book about the solution in Palestine and Israel. Equality, implement equality, dismantle apartheid, let people live peacefully. This is what we want. We can't just be anti all the time. So it's important to not lose track of that and understand that history, shows that things take their course. It takes years, it takes dozens of years, it takes centuries sometimes change. We're here for a very limited time on earth, by the way, but you know, we think like we have eternal time. We don't. But we can do what's within our power too, and not expect everything immediately, but see bits by bits, you know, bits of improvement here and there. Like look at the awareness, for example. Look at how the global ideas, global thoughts are shifting when it comes to this. These things are very, very important. So I hope that clarifies. Akram Hamidi Salam Mahmoud from Los Angeles, LA. If Rafah assault happens and Zionists invade Philadelphia corridor, will Egypt go full force or just control mode? Well, they will, in my opinion, okay, they will most likely initially start in a very limited manner to try and contain things and de-escalate and ask Israel, as they have been, lots of restraint, Egypt. Or we don't know. To them, that could be just the tipping point. And if, for example, the political leadership, although the political leadership is military leadership, gives orders that some of the troops won't really have much restraint, because not many of them do. Like, you regularly have situations where random Egyptian soldiers will go out of the blue shooting Israeli soldiers. Like there was the case of Muhammad Salah approximately a year ago, and people consider him a hero. Not Muhammad Salah, the Liverpool footballer, by the way, if he's still in Liverpool, but the Egyptian soldier. So you don't know how things can escalate, but I think they will initially try and stop it and tell Israel that's it, even though they've had so many warnings. And I spoke about in the beginning of this video how they are disconnected with Israel politically. And it might reach stage where it escalates to a completely all-out war. A, B, C, D. The Zionists will leave Gaza. Two choices: leave and live, stay and perish. Will Egypt allow this to happen before taking action? Egypt will just wait till the last second, up until their national, their territory, their sovereign lands are affected before taking it. Because Israel's already, you know, losing in Gaza. Look at how much they're losing and how much they're humiliating themselves. Bogey Muffin, I heard soldiers from Syria will help Palestine. Is that for sure? I didn't hear that. And I don't think that the Syrian army is in a position to take direct military action. The only thing Syria has been doing has been a link to the resistance allies, and they, or axis, depending on how you call them, really. I mean, mihwar in Arabic translates to axis, but I'm not sure if people use axis to, like, you know, have a reference to World War II where you had the allies and the axis. So that's why I try and diversify how I describe them. But if they would enter as an army, don't forget you have US bases, you have foreign bases in Syria, and you still have the war ongoing in Syria, right? And people might take advantage of that to completely take down Syria as a country. So that again would be a last resort, really, if multiple countries are involved, and they probably get guarantees from Russia. Easy. If Israel does bomb the border wall, what do you think Egypt's response will be? If they bomb the border on the side of Egypt, Egypt might attack that source to start off with. And like I said, things can really turn into an ice ball, really, very, very quickly. Mehmet Oglu, president of Turkey and Egyptian president are close than ever been. Inshallah, they will work to provide help for Palestinian cause. Yes, they have. Now they're going back to having good relations. Previously, the Turkish president had a problem with Egypt ever since the military coup, because he was very close with Morsi, and they had plans and joint military development plans, by the way, together. But historically, Egypt and Turkey, they had problems previously as well. Now they're getting closer, and Turkey is looking to send them some of its most advanced UAVs. The question is, who's Egypt going to use these UAVs against? And why? Clearly, something is happening. And Turkey and Egypt understand, that's my thinking, that if things escalate, we need each other here. And we need to support each other. So I hope that that's also answering Ramsey and Malika, who said, is Egypt going to war? Is Egypt going to help? We're just discussing on how things can escalate if Israel does expel the Palestinian population to Rafah, to Egyptian Rafah. Munzir Shihab, if the war expands to Lebanon, will the IDF destroy southern Lebanon? They won't focus on destroying southern Lebanon, they'll focus on Beirut. And this really explains their mindset. In November, Yoav Gallant said, a warning to Hezbollah. We are warning to the Lebanese. We are able to do to Lebanese civilians in Beirut to what we did to the civilians in Gaza. Why they won't attack the southern parts very heavily? They will attack, obviously, some places and destroy some villages, right? But they want to attack civilian population to cause more civilian destruction and death. Why? Because it's a genocidal, satanic death cult. That's why. This is how they operate. They want to kill as many people as possible. So they will obviously have intense attacks, but they will focus on highly populated areas because they want to kill more people. And what are you going to hit with Lebanon? Hezbollah have a tunnel system that's most advanced, more advanced than Hamas. In the rocks, right? Hamas is under the sands in Gaza, Lebanon in the rocks and the mountains, and they know their geography very, very well. It's as if they are part of their land and geography. They're an extension of it, similar to Gaza. It's very difficult for someone else to come and impose solutions where no matter how much force they... Look at the United States of America in Afghanistan. What can they do to Tora Bora, right? And the people hiding in mountains with basic AK-47. What are they going to do? Nothing. You can... How many tons are you going to land? You know what I mean? Zayema Ishmael. Is there a possibility Netanyahu is making a huge bluff? Well, he's a huge bluffer historically, but I'll give him that. The man is a good marketing guy. He knows how to get himself out of really bad situations. Benjamin Netanyahu is an excellent salesperson, with lots of lies and manipulation, this guy. And you continue the question, hoping to force Hamas leaders to give themselves up in order to prevent the new Nakba and massacre in Rafah. So he could be bluffing. Forcing Hamas leaders to give themselves up, they won't give themselves up. I'm telling you that from now. No one from the Palestinian resistance will give themselves up. And you're talking about people who were born in suffering and who lived in suffering and who sacrificed themselves and their families. The leaders of the Hamas particularly, and other Palestinian resistance movement, many of their sons were killed, they were killed. But obviously they need to protect themselves in war, right? They're going to have to be in tunnels because you're leading a war. They don't want to give Israel any sign of victory that they want. Even though some of them used to persist in staying in their homes in previous wars, by the way. And Israel targeted them and their whole families. Like there was once in 2009 one of their leaders, he said, I'm not leaving my house, even if Israel wants it. They took down the house and killed 14, at least, family members, knowing that they were there. Most of them were children under the age of 10. Really, everyone keep asking about Egypt. Did we forget how Sisi became president? Through a military coup, a bloody military coup. We all know that. But that's not to say that things are great with Egypt and Israel. Syndicate, are we going to see the non-state actors supporting the Palestinians step up their guerrilla fighting efforts? Yeah, potentially, to an extent. I mean, if you talk about Iraq, for example, because we need to appreciate that each and every part that's participating in this war, they have their own interests too. Like Iraq, they have their Iraqi policy too, right? Hezbollah, they heavily think and consider the Lebanese situation. That's why the response was very limited too, because they want to take action, but they don't want to let it reach an all-out war, right? Break everything. So they have these considerations to make. But if an escalation in Rafah goes too far, we might see further escalation. And by the way, don't underestimate the level of escalation. I mean, the coordination we're having during this war from the resistance movements is unprecedented. Cute pet videos. Good day. I'm afraid that even if the war finished, Gaza is already uninhabitable, you mean, I think. And Gaza, Palestinians probably condemned to move out of Gaza. That's why Hamas is asking for proper temporary housing up until they rebuild Gaza in a certain time frame, which Israel rejects, by the way. For those of you who don't know, we spoke about Benjamin Netanyahu's rejection of the ceasefire, but the official response was completely rejecting almost all of Hamas's proposals, but they still said we're going to continue to negotiate. Sorry. Sabi Hamid's Biden going to tell them to stop. Well, look, the administration is telling them we're not going to support the action in Rafah unless it's calculated and very careful, you know, these sentences. Biden is saying, you know, we warned them against invading Gaza, but they invaded Gaza and you continued to. So it's all talk, no action, really. Once we actually see things happening and implemented, we'll stop believing them. But apart from that, and it can come from anyone, you wait until you see action. NH Libra, isn't Egypt military strongly backed by the US? I think I read it well. Yeah, they are, and they get an aid, but they've been slowly shifting away and diversifying their military and getting more from other countries too. And I hope I'm answering. I'm not going to repeat all of the answers about Rafah. If you kind of go back to the initial stage of the video, you'll read all of the comments. I'm just going to try and answer any questions that relate to certain aspects. I wonder, that's Patricia, if Saudi is talking because they fear Yemen will escalate by attacking Aramco oil fields. That's a good question, Patricia. What I would say is they already had peace treaty. Again, by the way, thank you everyone for your super thanks. I'm going to get to them in a sec because I'm just seeing I'm not sure who's contributing, but I'm going to definitely get to you in a sec and mention you. Thank you so much. But what I wanted to say about Yemen, don't forget that China, and that was a significant change and shift. China brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran before all of this began. And people were already talking about how the potential of Saudi Arabia reaching a deal with Israel is dead from back then, before this Gaza war. That deal led to a peace process, a reconciliation process between Saudi Arabia and Yemen. I don't think Yemen, as in Ansarullah or the Houthis, I don't think they will be quick to retaliate or do something against Saudi Arabia because they simply just had this agreement not very long ago. And that's why I say we need to remember that each country has its own calculations when it comes to this. But again, if it all blows, do you know what I mean? You don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I don't foresee that happening very soon, personally. Joe Public, if war with Egypt occurs, do you think Syria will retake the Golan? If something happens in Syria, because they have so many problems. And thank you for everyone, for your kind comments, Jack and everyone. The Medina machine, remember with Afghanistan, Egypt, Saudi, Qatar, Syria, they sent their own interrogators to interrogate resistance fighters in Afghanistan because US said you are either with us or against us. Yes, I remember that very well. Bush used to say you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. But we're not 20 years ago, you know, we're not 70 years ago. Things are changing. The US is not what it was before. And we're going to have a different world, most likely, very soon. I mean, Gaza is accelerating this change and shift. Bettina Wilson, Assalamu alaikum, my brother Mahmoud, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for your membership, firstly. What can we expect from Jordan when it comes to a war between Egypt and Israel? Well, you know, they're obviously in coordination with Egypt. Jordan doesn't have a strong military. Like, you know, don't expect anyone to start attacking Israel from Jordan all of a sudden. They will obviously condemn it, say the typical stuff. And the biggest escalation in Jordan, I mean, the only harsh statement we heard from Jordan was from the Jordanian foreign minister, Ayman al-Safadi, who said, if Israel works to expel the Palestinians from Gaza and the Palestinians from the West Bank, this will be a declaration of war. He said that just over 2 months ago. In terms of capability, you know, unless they're going to surprise us with something, okay, they have an air force or whatever, I'm not sure how much they can do or what they can use, to be honest with you. Disasur Brewer, Saudi seems to try and play on both sides. Look, many of them try and play on both sides. Many of them try and keep, you know, good relations there, because you need to understand, I mean, when you talk about politics, you know, you need to be diplomatic as much as possible, because military action is the step you take when you haven't reached political or diplomatic solutions. And it's awful, right? I think we should reach as humanity a stage where political disputes are not resolved through violence. We can get there. You know, some of you might say I'm a utopist or whatever. But I mean, history has shown that we can develop as human beings and reach that stage at some point. But when you still have aggressors and psychopaths in power, that's not going to happen. People are going to defend themselves. Let me just continue. the reading the comments and questions. Just raise anything that's suitable. Karim asked, "Hi Mahmoud, is there any information regarding tensions between the Egyptian army and Assisi? Is there a chance of rebellion?" I don't think so, because he comes from the army and his military coup was supported by the army, and the army is very powerful in Egypt. I mean, there could be tensions between them and some parts of, the people, but not the army. Jamal Muhammad, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And Caesar Alarcon for your very, very generous super thanks. And Iman Omar. And I'm sorry if I missed anyone. I'm going to try and get to all of them in a sec. That's very kind of you. Dear Mahmoud, how are the Chinese, that's from Felix bin Ali, and Russians involved in this game of power, especially as strategic allies of Iran? Well, they're like Iran. What's Iran to, for example, Hezbollah and Hamas? So they won't kind of directly get involved unless the bigger country gets involved, which is Iran. So if someone goes and attacks Iran, I think that'll be a red line both for China and Russia. And they made some movements, like, China sent like 6 warships in the beginning. Putin told them, we deployed permanent jets in next to Turkey in the beginning of the war with the Kinjan missiles. I think that can reach the US ships that already left. And by the way, don't forget that the carriers that left the Mediterranean, they were there to protect Israel from a potential escalation with Lebanon. And the fact that they went was also a sign from the US that, look, I'm not going to help you if you're going to continue. And people need to read between the lines with these things. And now their situation is really bad with the United States administration. With Blinken, it was a catastrophe, his visit to Israel. He wanted to meet with the IDF chief. They didn't allow him to and criticized him heavily. He wanted to go to Karm Abu Salem crossing, and they didn't allow him to, right? Very tense. They're criticizing Biden a lot. Abdul Haq, why is Egypt not letting in food and medicine if it was sincere? Yeah, we spoke about this a couple of times, but I'll repeat very quickly. The Rafah border agreement is a 3-way system that needs to be agreed upon between the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, not in Gaza, and Egypt and Israel. So Egypt could be okaying the entry of certain aids, for example, aid trucks, sorry. And then Israel will say no, because they say, oh no, I'm not allowing this much. So the agreement could well happen from Egypt, but Israel is delaying it. People need to understand that. Golden Sun, thank you very much. And Michael Alim, thank you very much. And Relly M. And Jin Z, NZ, Karim, and Daniela. And I'm going to reach to the rest of you and the other questions too. A3 Medina, Nota Kimichi. I need to mention everyone sending super thanks. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And V3ROCHF. Thank you very much for your contributions. Did I miss someone? I missed someone. Yes, thank you very much, dear. And Red Gorilla. Are the Saudi public not getting upset with the non-action of the Saudi government? Can we see uprisings in Arab populations to force action? Well, the way they promote their action or lack of action is by controlling their population, like the Britain controls its population with brainwashing, and the US and other EU states that are siding with Israel. So if you hear mainstream media in Saudi Arabia, it'll be full of religious clerics. They call themselves religious clerics, only good at raising their beards to half a meter, and then giving fatwa, telling you that the Palestinian resistance is bad, and you can't support them, and that they're evil, and that they're trying to manipulate the people through religion, telling them, it's not religious to support them. Palestine is not mentioned in the Quran. And some of them go to an extent of selling the Zionist lie of that land belongs to Bani Israel, the sons of Israel, and they are sons of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu and Ben Gurion and all of them. So they brainwash people, and this is how they control them. In terms of revolt, I'm not sure. Iman, thank you, in case I did mention or forgot to mention, by the way, for your very generous contribution as well. Ayman the boy. Assalamu alaikum, my beloved brother. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Majdi Sali from South Africa. My question is, sorry if the name is not like the username, do you think Iran will attack Israel directly? Only if Iran is under direct threat will it attack Israel directly, or if things get to a level where Iran's direct allies are at the brink of collapse or close to that brink. But directly, no, because they don't want to deal with the implication, the political and judicial implications of a country, and the military implications of them as a country intervening in this war. Real Christian Sisi is the president of Mexico, right? Yes, according to Biden, he's the president of Mexico. Oh my God, I had so many laughs about this yesterday. Couldn't help myself. He was defending himself in his speech, Biden, that he hasn't lost his memory and his memory is fine. And then he said, I told the president of Mexico, Sisi, to open the border. By the way, the Egyptians didn't like that, and they released some statements saying we never close it from our end. And just like I spoke with you now, it's a three-way system, and Israel needs to approve things as they go from the Rafah border. And also, one thing you need to understand too, Israel had a proposal for Egypt. That's for those criticizing this thing, right? You can criticize, by the way, the bribery. And we've heard reports about bribery, about people, whether to get aid in or out, okay? This is something bad. But Israel had a proposal, gave Egypt a proposal to move the Rafah crossing from Rafah to near Karm Abu Salim, so that it's close to Israel. Why are they doing that? Because they don't trust it, and they, according to them, the aid will reach Hamas, and they're sending these people to protest against aid. Imagine how evil these people are, protesting against getting what? Milk for children. And so they said they have another plan now to let in most of the aid from Beit Hanun, that's in the north. And that way, and train some armed Palestinian groups that are in alliance with Israel to let aid in. Why do they want to do that? Because they want to dictate exactly everything that goes in. So if it could be, for example, they don't want Hamas to be seen as the people getting the aid and spreading it. Excuse me. And they don't want to have a situation where Hamas would take certain things and use it for military purposes. Not that that's the case, by the way. I think Hamas, they have multiple ways to get in their military equipment on things they use to their military wing. But this is what Israel is worried about. Anas, thank you very much. Retro Revival, nice to see you too, and everyone else. I'm sorry if I missed some of the comments. Where did we reach? Uptown Bay Area. How about Yahya Sinwar? They said he will be exiled. He won't be exiled. Don't worry. He's not going to leave Gaza. Oryx the Taken King. Do you think the Ba'ath Party will make a comeback in Iraq? Probably. Maybe. I mean, they didn't lose their powers in general that much. Let's go to some of the other comments or questions. Mr. Y, why do you think Abu Ubaidah speaks less nowadays? Well, there could be many reasons for that. Number one, there could be less to talk about. There could be reasons to allow the negotiations to continue. When he doesn't talk on video, they release statements. They release regular statements. Like, for example, the statement they released 2 or 3 days ago, about the level of tanks that they destroyed and military machinery statistics, and the fact that they, AQB, Al-Qassam Brigades, publish daily almost videos. So if anyone needs evidence about what's happening, it's there. However, there was some worry about him being injured, and that could potentially have been the case. But he appeared a few weeks ago. And I think they probably also, when these people talk, they probably, their appearance sends a message, perhaps, to Israel or the interested parties. The fact that they're giving the statement to this person live sharing, this also has meanings that they probably know or have between them and Israel. Miguel Garcia, another question about Jordan. How the situation in Jordan, almost half the population is Palestinian, yes. A bit more, I think. We are witnessing attempts to block goods and transportation throughout Israel through King Hussein borders. To be completely honest with you, I haven't seen much of the attempts to block these goods towards Israel, but I do know that Jordan is part of that back way for Israel instead of the Red Sea, UAE, Saudi, Jordan. But obviously the people are not happy. But again, Jordan, you have a very much a police state, right? And if they even want to protest, they have to protest within a certain territory for a limited amount of time. Ashkiro Moxie question, do you think Egypt, Turkey and Iran will work together to resist Israeli attempt to empty out Gaza? Look, they are talking. They are absolutely talking together. They have had meetings together. They see where things are going, and they definitely are having more defensive measures or coordinations happening between them. I mean, the fact that you have the Turkish president meeting the Egyptian president, why now? After so much time with boycott. I mean, they started the relationships before with regards to the gas in the Mediterranean, because Egypt tried to side with Cyprus and Greece against Turkey, and now they're selling them some of their most advanced UAVs. Why now? Clearly because of what's happening, and they see where things might be going. Awesome. Model making. Only Libya can change the dynamics if they act like the Houthis. What's your take on that, Mahmoud? I know it's too early for now. Look, Libya has proven that they Well, but Gaza, they have weapons from Libya. So some of the weapons in Gaza, they reach from Libya through Egypt. You know, you have lots of space to send weapons, right? But Gaza's main manufacturing and stuff is from Gaza. They manufacture most of the weapons that they fight Israel with. That's why they can survive for so long, because manufacturing continues, including channeling weapons against Israel. In terms of actions like the Houthis, I don't think they have the strategic. I don't think they have the key power that the Houthis have, the Ansarullah, with the Red Sea, with Bab el Mandeb, because what are they going to close the space between them and Italy? You know, dozens of miles. They can't do that, and I don't think they have the weapons that the Ansarullah Yemenis are equipped with from Iran. So I don't personally think they're going to play a big role, apart from potentially, you know, smuggling weapons or whatever to Gaza. Five Cats, hello from Egypt. Hello. We are suffering from a severe economic crisis, but we will stand behind our army if the decision is taken to terminate the peace treaty. I'm sure you will. Look, I mean, I've had discussion as well with people. We know very well how much the Egyptian people are, you know, in rage, right? But obviously there needs to be a decision to be taken. And most of the Egyptian people don't like Israel, you know, despite the fact that they had a peace treaty or whatever. And they continued their efforts, you know, to make sure which side does what. But absolutely, I mean, don't forget the march as well from Egypt to Rafah. We've seen that. People in trucks with aid for days. We've seen those images, so I'm sure of that. Altaf Ismail, any news about Pakistan? Pakistan's too busy with their inner problems between the army and Imran Khan. Anytime a leader with some sense comes, you know, they try and take action against them. So that's it's a problem there. I don't think they're going to do much, by the way. Let's go to any other comments or questions that are relevant to the subject. Omi Mahomi. That's the question, isn't it? Respect, brother. Thank you, firstly. Do you think this will develop into World War III? And even if that's the case, how long do you think it will take to get there? Look, we hope it doesn't reach that stage. But the problem is the United States administration, the European countries, many of them, and when I say countries, I mean the governments, not the people in power, they're constantly adding fuel, like what they do with Russia, their warmongering and attacks in the Middle East, you know, the US acting like the international bully, getting their way with by peace or by war everywhere, greed, political and economic greed. It could potentially, we hope it won't, because every side, they have their calculations. Okay, what are you going to use, nukes? Well, we have nukes, right? And how many people are going to have to die? For what? For money? For economic purposes? For temporary worldly things? I hope not. I hope not. And, you know, that's why we constantly remind people that there is a solution out there. There are solutions, and these solutions are simply political implementation of certain policies and things. And the main thing that needs to be implemented is equality and universal human rights. You have the Universal Human Rights Declaration many years back. You know, we're at a stage where people should be equal. treated equally, given basic rights, that no one should be arguing about, like, your right for safety, lack of, prosecution, and medicine, health, economic rights, freedom of movement. All of these things, they should be universal now. But they're not. And because they're not, you will always have tensions. And I hope we won't reach that stage. Yes, if Egypt was to attack Israel at some point and were to enter Gaza, do you think they would try to add Gaza to the Egyptian territory? Well, Israel offered Egypt to take Gaza, as in for it to be, because they don't want the burden. They either want resettlement or just get out of here. Ideally for Israel, expelling the population, a complete ethnic cleansing campaign, so that they can retake the territory. They offered Egypt control. Egypt rejected because to them they know, okay, hold on a second, they want to completely annihilate the Palestinian cause. And the Camp David peace treaty with Egypt was always tied with the Palestinian cause. One of its main things was to work to build a Palestinian state, and our fate is always tied with that. And if the Palestinians won't have a state, then there would be problems. So Israel wants that, Egypt doesn't. And Egypt knows the Israeli plan to have people from Gaza in Egypt carry out something from Gaza, from Egyptian territories against Israel, Israel using this as a pretext to go into Sinai. And the Egyptians are prepared for it, the Egyptian army. Is Israfil, German foreign minister, spoke of her scheduled visit next week and hoping she can potentially get the IOF to protect civilians and minimize casualty. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at her statement, not the question, obviously, but these people are so... Does that mean the Rafah assault is postponed until then? Look, these people, they only give lip service. That's what to try and convince them, Oh, hello, I have a psychopathic maniac ravaging with the worst weapons on earth, killing and murdering and butchering children, and I'm going to try and convince them to be quiet. Well, this is what the supporters of Israel act like. It's as if you have a thief outside of store stealing violently 24/7 and killing people, armed robbery, and killing the people when he's stealing from them, massacring them. And the police is sitting outside and they're like, hey, can you just tone it down for a bit? Can you just tone it down? Take it easy. Don't go inside, shoot them from out. This is I hope I'm kind of, it's a tragic situation. But sometimes this is the example that I can give really about the situation. And this is how the EU leaders are acting with these statements. They're not going to convince them to do anything. They're doing whatever they want because they know they have impunity. It's as simple as that. John Doe, Allah bless you, Mahmoud, for your work and input, and you too, and every single one of you. Thank you so much. And sorry if I'm unable to go through all of the messages. I'm just trying to reach some of the questions or White Rose, we in the US are protesting every day today in New York City. They have people in front of Blinken's house in tents. Like UK, we had 700,000 protests, so I'm hoping Israel is over. Many say so. Well, that's, you know, this is the important thing to people, you know, for people to keep taking action. That's very, very important. Ashley Carmela, your kafia game is strong. Thank you. I have many colors, but I'm sticking to green for some reason. Mar-a-Lago, Iranian foreign minister meeting Nasrallah in Beirut. Is there some sort of plot for action? Well, there have been a lot of tensions in Lebanon in the past few days. Firstly, today we heard a report about the failed assassination attempt of someone from Hamas. Yesterday, there was an assassination attempt that I haven't seen the confirmation yet about multiple leaders from Hezbollah. And Israel was attacking when that meeting was happening. Now, they have regular meetings. And because the Hamas attack on the 7th of October was not coordinated with them, but the leader of the military wing in Gaza, Muhammad al-Daif, asked the resistance partners to participate, they started having this coordination after this attack. And one of the main links to this coordination is obviously in Beirut, because, you know, many Hamas representatives are there, Nasrallah's there, Hezbollah's there, and, you know, key figures are there. They also meet in Syria and other places as well, you know, but Lebanon is a very important place. That's why they assassinated Al-Aruri, because he had a tie, not a close link, basically. He was very well connected, but saying that they always have someone to substitute him. Obviously, they have a plot of action, yes, and that plot of action, don't forget the statements that we heard from the foreign minister of Iran is that we concluded that we don't want an escalation. We would rather reach a solution. As a matter of fact, Hamas, from day one of this war, Abu Ubaida's first statement, he said, we tell Israel we are willing to reach an agreement now of a prisoner swap. Now, we're open for it now. That didn't happen. Israel went on this genocidal rage, hate-filled genocidal rage against the people, you know, representing their true colors. And they led to the situation where we're at the moment. But obviously, you will have to have constant meetings between the resistance movements. And one of the key resistance movements, I mean, the strongest resistant movement in the Middle East on its own is Hezbollah. And Israel knows many things that they're capable of, but not everything. I mean, they started using a new missile a couple of days ago. They used it first time on the 25th of January, and I think they used it again today or yesterday. It's called Almas. It's a guided missile with a camera that shows everything up until you reach the target. And that's just one of their things that they're showing that they haven't shown previously. And we still haven't reached a stage where it's an all-out war. So imagine if it does reach an all-out war, what can happen? Video for Cats asked a nice question. Is there a way for Ansar Allah to reach Gaza? They do. And one interesting thing that I've actually been meaning to speak about, but I didn't have a chance for some reason because there's so much to talk about and you just prioritize really. But I think some of you might have seen it already anyway. Is their training against attacking Israeli settlements as in troops attacking, the Ansarullah, the Yemenis, are training against Israeli settlements, shooting posts, bases, invading, taking control, taking prisoners, which sends a message that we're willing to participate on the ground, not just with UAV. So it's a very interesting question that you asked, and there is a way if we reach that stage. And that stage is an all-out war, especially if it breaks with Egypt, that Israel is stupidly pushing towards. So yes, they would be able to reach. Five Cats, now the Egyptian army is much stronger than it was in 73. Absolutely, when it was fighting with light weapons. Light weapons and like some of the actions of the Egyptian Air Force against the Israeli Air Force, apart from the very successful military action they took against Israel, is still, you know, being taught to this day in military academies. Their bravery, their capability, and now they have more advanced things, of course. Kazu Makino, my Egyptian friend, is worried that if they open the border that Hamas will come through with the refugees. Is there any logic to that? Look, not much, because Egypt and Hamas, they know each other very well. I mean, if there is anything going on, they know it. They know their relations very well. What Egypt wants to prevent is the mass expulsion of Palestinian people from Gaza, because they know Israel wants to do that, to expel them and eradicate the Palestinian cause that the Egyptian president spoke about since the beginning of this war. And when they go into Gaza, he said that, even Sisi said that. Do you think if they come to Sinai, they will stop attacking you? And when they start attacking you from Sinai, you're going to say, it's us. And if there's an action to be taken, we're going to have to act along those lines. Don't take everything as, but the initial part is exactly almost as he said it. So that's the main thing they're worried about when it comes to Egypt, rather than Hamas fights. So when you talk about Hamas and the Palestinian population, you know, people like to, obviously they've used Hamas as like a, you know, scare stick, okay, against everyone, so that they scare people off from supporting the Palestinian cause. When you talk about Hamas, they're embedded in Palestinian society. They're more embedded than the Tory party is embedded in Britain, for example. What are you talking about? They have institutions, schools, universities, they run charities, people support them because they have this ideological background of them. Hamas historically were one of the very few and at the forefront of resisting Israel. Why shouldn't they support them, the Gazan people, right? So these people are trying to kind of make it out as if Hamas is some sort of a... The main problem we have here is the genocidal regime sitting in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. That's the problem. The supremacist state that's been there for 75 years. Hamas is a symptom. If you eradicate the root cause of the problem, you won't have the symptom or the side effect or the antidote, if you will. Spin Man, as an anti-Zionist Israeli, I really appreciate your work. Thank you very much, my friend. I really like your episode about the Israeli left. Was insightful, yet with all the right criticism and spotlight. So thank you for that. No problem, my friend. Of course, I have many like Israeli anti-Zionists who I know, and I always try to distinguish, because it's very important, between Zionist, Israeli, Jewish, and Semitic, because you don't want to fall into the trap of what the Israeli government is doing, which is demonizing a whole population. The Israeli society is very varied. It's from people with very many cultures and backgrounds, religious and non-religious. And, you know, If you have a family or friends, you won't have the same idea. Now imagine a whole nation. Obviously, there's the argument about the tone in the state, what you say, what you do, but we all know, and if you're in Israel now, you know the level of censorship too. So you're more than welcome. Franny, your faith is beautiful. Keep on. Thank you. I will. um, AG, what do you think about Iran pretending to care for Gaza? Look, Iran does not, in my opinion, pretend to care for Gaza. Iran had the Palestinian cause ever since the revolution. Think whatever you want to think about the revolution, by the way, in Iran, and have your criticism about the regime and the religious authority. That's a different subject. But when it comes to Gaza, AS, thank you so much. Just 1 second, let me read the comment. Firstly, thank you so much for your generous contribution. Keep up the great work, my brother. I've boycotted media in my country due to their obvious bias towards Israel. It is sickening. You are my go-to source for this news. I'm glad to hear that, my friend. Thank you, and I hope you will always find me as a good source. And many thanks for the contribution. Going back to Iran and pretending to care for Gaza. Now, regardless of how you view the Iranian regime and the religious authority in Iran, and I have my comments about, people who speak on behalf of religion. But when it comes to Gaza and Palestine, they had that as a slogan ever since the revolution in 1979. And they supported Palestine before even Hamas existed. And listen to Hamas. They're leading the fight in Gaza, right? And the PIJ. They tell you Iran supports us unconditionally. Unconditionally. Even when they had deep-rooted disagreements with Syria, and Syria expelled the Hamas leadership for not wanting to support the government blatantly, right, outright, even though they tried to be very diplomatic back then, supporting the people of Syria and the government to reach a solution. They had a bit more tension. They still supported them. So they're not pretending. They're not pretending to support Iran. They have proven that they support. And some people don't like that. Like some people in the Arab world, the Muslim will tell you, oh no, Iran, they're faking it. It's like, have you thrown a stone on Israel to come and tell me Iran is pretending? People who didn't throw a peel coming to tell me, oh no, Iran is faking. Well, that's a great movie if they're faking. What a movie. That's better than Hollywood if they're faking. So I don't think they are, in my opinion. Retro revival. Power wants more power. We cannot wait for power to concede. And I think you made another comment about power, which is important. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And that's a problem. When you're in power, you're on a power trip. And why should you concede? And we're in a situation, fortunately, where the power is an understanding unless there's power. That's why, I said previously, unfortunately, Israel's proven, successive Israeli governments, that they understand the language of force. And you have many Israelis saying that. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be the case. They have the power and the money to find political solutions, but they don't want to. And when it comes to the people of Gaza, it's only human nature to resist before going into divine law or human law, or it's human nature to resist. If someone tries to come and attack you and your family, your natural instinct is to defend yourself by any means necessary. And when it comes to Gaza and such an ongoing long conflict, they know what Israel is capable of as a country. They know what they did to their ancestors. So unfortunately, that's the case. But again, it's important to remind people that there is another solution. There could be another solution. At the same time, we're not delusional here. There's things happening on the ground, and we need to look at them in the right manner and call a spade a spade. Mandy Young, can you confirm if BRICS ships have been deployed to the Red Sea? I haven't heard that personally. Okay, then another interesting question from David Durrani. Do you think that Israel's actions significantly affect the one-state solution? I mean, how could the Palestinians live with Israelis after genocide? Interesting. Firstly, we need to distinguish between what the Israeli government wants or the calls for a one-state solution that I'm calling for too and wrote a book about. Israeli government wants a one-state solution of apartheid and supremacy and military force and occupying other people. The people who call for a one-state solution, including the Palestinians from 1948, backed by the Arab countries, is a state for everyone, equal. That didn't suit the Zionist movement. Can Palestinians live with Israelis? Well, of course they can. I lived with Israelis, right? Day-to-day life. Because people can live. And what you see, like if you see, for example, settlements highlighted, you'll see the radical settlers. Many people in Israeli society despise them and they don't like them. There's an internal division, right? And the Israeli society is split more than ever about the shape and the looks of the country and where it should lead to. So they can live with each other because you're talking about human beings. The question is, how do you reach a stage where you dismantle this indoctrination? And this is a very interesting subject here that I want to talk about. We're good at learning as human beings. We're not great at unlearning. There needs to be a lot of unlearning when it comes to this, okay? Especially from many parts of the indoctrinated Israeli society. You know something, you think you're right, and that's it. It's stuck with you for the rest of your life. Imagine learning that thing for dozens of years, right? And having to adjust. It can happen, but it's difficult. It's not easy. However, if the general tone starts to become different, things on the ground will become different. People need to understand that. If the media stops spreading venom and hate and racism, things will change. If politicians stop being so divisive and abhorrent, things will change. Things will definitely change. Like when we were about to reach a peace process in the mid-90s with the late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, Israelis used to protest in their hundreds of thousands in the streets to support peace. There was hope. Finally, the Palestinians are going to have a state. We're going to live next to each other. We're not going to fight. Obviously, you have the criticism over the deal, what type of deal, the refugees, all of that. I'm just talking in general, okay? So it's possible. It's possible. People can reconcile. Look at other areas in the world where you had deep-rooted conflicts for centuries, and then you reached a solution. And that's not to say that the next day everything's going to be happy-clappy and everyone's going to be hugging, right? Some people in South Africa still think that apartheid was better, or you might still have people with this ideology. But things change, and generations change. Many people of the older generations are changing their mind. I receive comments from 60, 70, and 80-year-olds, right? So if that's what's happening, imagine the younger generations who haven't been fed media poison the way we did or the older generations did. Obviously, there's a big fight on their awareness, but it is possible. It's possible with some actions. It is possible. And it's important to keep that subject open. It's important to continue to talk about it because otherwise, what is the solution? What, ongoing endless wars? Is that what we want? You know what I mean? That's why so many Israelis are fleeing Israel now. They don't want to raise their children in a war-torn country. Just browsing through the rest of your comments to see if we have still anything relevant to talk about before we end. Marcus Pute, question, what role would Hamas have in a future one-state solution? Or would Hamas dissolve when the occupation ends? Or will it come back as a pure political movement? And what would they work towards? Well, interesting. Obviously, they have the ideology, Hamas, which is derived by the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. The only difference between them and the traditional Muslim Brotherhood ideology is that they are detached from the central Muslim Brotherhood ideology in Egypt. And obviously, they've been almost completely gone now in Egypt after the military coup. They had their disagreement with the Muslim Brotherhood in the late 80s because they wanted to start an armed struggle against Israel, and the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt told them, we would advise that you don't do that now. So there was a disagreement there, and they said, we're taking our own action, and we're so that's the background ideology. Now, with the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, I mean, many of the movements with the Muslim Brotherhood, they've proven that they are dynamic and can change depending on the situation. So you'd see the extreme from them, you'd see the more lenient or liberal from them. I mean, one of the political movements in Israel that was in the Israeli government for the first time in history a couple of years ago has Muslim Brotherhood ideology, sorry. What would be their role? Would they dissolve if the occupation ends? They can restructure. They can still obviously have politicians, okay? You know, like Nelson Mandela and his party in South Africa after they dismantled apartheid. They can continue as a party as they are, you know, to thrive on their, you know, heritage of resisting Israel or continuing or whatever. Or they might decide to play a different game, you know, have different politicians or whatever. But the ideology would remain there to an extent. It could be adjusted, it could be, yes, things could be different from here and there, do you know what I mean? But it would really depend on how the situation ends. But the act of resistance itself is circumstantial. It's not, like I said, it's a means, not a goal. Like you can't just, well, what are you going to resist forever? You can, yeah, resist like certain things like injustice, tyranny, or whatever. But actively resisting an occupation or oppression, then when you get rid of occupation and oppression, you start talking about other stuff like equality, like, you know, day-to-day life, economics, society, equality of rights, all of these things. Ari Curtis, interesting question. You have really interesting questions. It's We're spending a lot of time together. What are the chances of a violent coup in Israel or any coup? There are chances. I'll tell you why. Because military coup, ousting the prime minister, there's a strong argument that it was the deep state in Israel that killed Yitzhak Rabin, who was the Israeli prime minister, not Yigal Amir, because there are many shady things when it came to the assassination of that prime minister that many Israelis, Zionist Israelis, establishment Israelis speak about. And like one of the things is when they took his body to the hospital, the bullets weren't matching with where it was declared to be seen. Someone was shouting in Hebrew word srak srak, which means like as in a false training thing they do. And there were other suspicious things when it comes to this. So if that was the case, and I'm obviously not confirming, I'm just giving you that that theory exists and it's backed by some evidence, according to some. Obviously, the mainstream Israel will completely deny that. Then there is capability in Israel for a military coup or someone taking the prime minister. However, and that attempt could have already been there. I mean, it's potentially very, very much there with Netanyahu now. And, you know, why would Blinken want to meet with Herzi Halevi, the IDF chief? Why would he want to do that without political presence? Someone who's in a very bad situation with Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, many people have had enough of him. I mean, I said it before and I'll say it again. In Israel, you have a perfect recipe for a military coup. You have people at the top hating the one in power, including in the military and including in politics. You have a divided society and you have a very bad problem, and many people won't be really sad if that man's gone. That's a perfect recipe for a military coup. So it's a very good question, and it's very probable, but the people who might be thinking of that are thinking of the day after the coup. And I hope that also clarifies the question that was asked after this. What if Bibi would die tomorrow? You know, okay, you can get into the argument of what would happen the day after. Probably I mean, everyone with the potential of leading the country apart from Netanyahu, they have a bit more sense than him. Now, everyone who will potentially replace him is also a genocidal maniac, by the way. Let's not forget that. I mean, the people who enabled the settlements in the West Bank, who did it on the sly, some of them were considered to be left in Israel. Let's not forget that. It's not like those things are going to great and it's only Netanyahu that's the problem. It's the systematic apartheid that's the problem, and the regime of supremacy, racial and religious supremacy, that's the problem, not just Netanyahu. The only thing with Netanyahu, and we're fortunate in a way, for someone like Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing crew, is that they're showing Israel exactly how it is ever since its establishment that many Israelis are unaware of. Deep Diver asked about how different the situation would be if Trump comes to power. Would Putin advise Trump on Gaza? Look, Trump wasn't great when he was there. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He relies heavily on pleasing the evangelical side that supports Israel heavily, although we've seen many recent polls from within the evangelical community, especially the younger generations, about a shift in terms of their thoughts on Israel. I don't know how much, you know, because his statements are supportive of Israel. He never said anything outright about Israel. He had a feud with Netanyahu, and you know, Trump has his own, you know, ways that are in many ways similar to Netanyahu. He gets upset about things and takes them personally, but not as against Israel as a state. So I don't think he'll make a very big difference. I mean, look at it. The biggest candidate that's supposedly like revolutionary now in the US, Kennedy, right? He is also supporting Israel. So what are we expecting from US leaders? As long as you support Israel as a state, as it exists, you know what I mean? David Durrani, Jazakallah khairan for answering my question. No problem. Barakallahu feek, brother. Let's see if we have any more questions. Charles Leclerc, thank you very much for your contribution. Assalamu alaikum, akhi. I'm new to your channel. Look forward to seeing more of your content, hearing more of your views. Free Palestine. Thank you very much and welcome. And thank you for your contribution. And thank you, Shannon L. as well. Oh, we have many super thanks. Auntie K. Starrett, thank you. Anna Ali, thank you very much. Sorry that I haven't reached that stage yet. Revival. Okay, I'm Steezer. Welcome. Glad I found your channel the first time today. This has been refreshing and invigorating. Thank you. Welcome. And everyone else commenting. Sorry if I missed some of your comments. Zakaria Razak question, how do you feel about the soldiers that dressed up and went to the hospital to kill? They use that regularly. They do that regularly, Israel. Yeah, the Zionist militias read up about the King David bombing. They disguised as Arabs delivering milk, and they went and bombed the British headquarters and killed 92 people, including many innocent people and British soldiers and officials before the establishment of Israel. And imagine how low the British Prime Minister was to go and visit Israel in that location, disregarding what happened to British troops at the time. Imagine. So they use that every time when they want to do, you know, undercover operations. During the time of Oslo, Palestinians were thinking about a safe future. Nas S. Yes, yeah, they were. And obviously nothing finalized then, but there was like some sort of hope, you know. Both sides can, you know, compromise a little bit. I mean, obviously, the right of return was one of the main problems. Like, where would they return? You know, you can't talk on behalf of people who were expelled, for example, from Haifa or Yafa or Ramli or Bir al-Saba and led Yafa, and telling them you can't go back. Who are you to tell them? I was expelled from my land and I want to go back. But that's an example of one key problem that was with the two-state solution. And Israel, to them, it would affect them. They wouldn't have like this demographic superiority that I also spoke about, instead of considering it as a demographic blessing and support to the economy. Look at Canada, for example. Now, they're inviting immigrants to come to build the country. Anyone with any sort of common sense knows that countries are built with immigration. But yeah, there was more hope. There was more hope back then. Okay. Gullible, thank you very much for your comment. Salaz Mahmoud, once again, thanks for your work and very much appreciated. Gives us all insight we have. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Musa Ali, Brother Mahmoud, you said Egypt would defeat Israel in a war. What makes you say that, given the history of previous wars with Arab nations and their failures? Because we're not living in the 60s. The Egyptian army is different. They're way more advanced. They have way more diversified weapons. They have way more advanced weapons. They don't only rely on America, and they have been training for 50 years almost only on fighting Israel. And Israel in bad situations, the military, they don't have willingness to fight. They have a problem with weapons. They're talking about the fact that we need to develop our weapons. The US isn't sending them everything that they need, and they rely heavily on the US, and they're ruining the relationship with them. All of these contribute to my assumption that Egypt would defeat Israel. If Hamas, if a group of people with flip-flops and Adidas shoes and trousers going there are not obviously, and I'm just saying as a reference, not to undermine anything with the Palestinian resistance, but if they're doing that to Israel, what would a well-equipped army do with people who don't like the Israeli state for what they've done previously? Okay, let's finish it there, guys, then. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. We spent 110 minutes together so far. Thank you very much for everyone who joined me from the beginning, everyone who joined me in the middle. If you want to see everything, obviously you can rewind and watch everything from the beginning, watch my other video that I'm posting on a regular basis too. If you're new to this channel, I have a live stream every night at 10 GMT. You can contribute, share your thoughts, ask questions. We can talk about lots of stuff. Super thanks to all of you who sent super thanks. It means a lot, really supporting my work here. Your support enables me to continue my work and focus more on it as well, and deliver you news and insights and updates and analysis and sharing our thoughts and talking together. And I obviously wish you a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, if it's still Saturday where you are. Your day or afternoon or evening or night, depending on where you are as well. And I will see you soon in the next video. And Patricia, shout out to you, last one with the super thanks. Thank you so much, and have a good night and evening. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.